10 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਜਾਂਚ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਿੱਜਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਤਲ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਥਿਤ ਦੋਸ਼ੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਐਡਮਿੰਟਨ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਕਰ ਲਏ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਮ ਕਰਨ ਬਰਾੜ ਜੋ ਕਿ 22 ਸਾਲ, ਕਮਲਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ 22 ਸਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਕਰਨਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ 28 ਸਾਲ ਦੱਸੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਜਣੇ ਐਡਮਿੰਟਨ ਹੀ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸਨ ਅਤੇ ਸੋਮਵਾਰ ਤੱਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਰੀ ਅਦਾਲਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਇਹ ਕਥਿਤ ਕਾਤਲ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਨਾਗਰਿਕ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਸੰਬੋਧਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਪਿਛਲੇ 3 ਤੋਂ 5 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਆਰਜੀ ਵੀਜ਼ਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਆਏ ਸਨ ਅਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਪੱਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ ਵੀ ਸਾਂਝੀਆਂ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਜਾਣਕਾਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੇਰਵੇ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਕਰਵਾ ਸਕੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਫਰਸਟ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਮਰਡਰ ਦੇ ਚਾਰਜ ਲਗਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਤਲ ਦੀ ਪਲੈਨਿੰਗ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਦੋਸ਼ ਲਗਾਏ ਗਏ ਹਨ। ਅਦਾਲਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੋਸ਼ ਸਾਬਿਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ 3-4 ਸੂਬਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਚ ਅਜੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਭਾਰਤੀ ਭੂਮਿਕਾ ਦੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਬੁਲਾਰੇ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਕੁਝ ਦੱਸਣੋਂ ਮਨਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹਾਲੇ ਜਾਂਚ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਅਦਾਲਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਬੂਤ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੱਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਕਿ ਕੌਣ ਜਾਂਚ ਅਧੀਨ ਹੈ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਬੁਲਾਰੇ ਨੇ ਸਥਾਨਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੜੀ ਬਹਾਦਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਜਾਂਚ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਾਇਆ, ਜਿਸ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਹ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਸਕੀਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਵੀ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ। ਇਹ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀਆਂ ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਹਨ। ਨਿੱਜਰ ਕਤਲ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੜੇ ਗਏ ਸ਼ੱਕੀ ਕਾਤਲਾਂ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅੱਜ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੁਪਹਿਰ ਸਰੀ RCMP ਹੈੱਡਕੁਆਰਟਰ ਵਿਖੇ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਵਿਸਥਾਰਿਤ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਮਿਲ ਸਕੀ ਹੈ।
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Superintendent Mandeep Mooker, and I'm the officer in charge of the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. On June 18th, 2023, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was fatally shot and killed as he departed Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in Surrey. Shortly thereafter, I was called into conduct of this investigation. Over the past 10 months, IHIT has led an investigation in partnership with internal and external partners to advance this investigation. Through complex investigative techniques and tremendous support from the community, we were able to gather significant evidence that led us to the individuals that were responsible for this homicide. I'm here today to announce that we arrested and charged 3 individuals for first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in relation to Hardeep Nijjar's homicide. IHIT investigators, along with Edmonton Police Services and numerous other RCMP resources, took custody of all 3 of these individuals in Edmonton, Alberta. The following 3 individuals were charged for this homicide. 22-year-old Garn Brar, who's an Indian national, who is residing in Edmonton, Alberta. 22-year-old Kamalpreet Singh, who is an Indian national, who is also residing in Edmonton, Alberta. 28-year-old Karnpreet Singh, who is also an Indian national, residing in Edmonton, Alberta. We will be disseminating photos of these accused men in hopes of any information in relation to their presence in Surrey during the time of the offense. This investigation does not end here. We are aware that others may have played a role in this homicide, and we remain dedicated to finding and arresting each one of these individuals. At this time, I want to take a moment to recognize and thank CFSUBC, Edmonton Police Service, and Surrey RCMP Detachment for their unwavering dedication from the onset of this investigation. I would also like to thank the Nijjar family, the citizens of Surrey, and the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara executive for their patience and understanding. We understand that the community is going to have a lot of questions. However, at this time, as this process is going through the court process, we may not be able to answer all the questions. In closing, I would like to say how proud I am of the IHIT investigative team, along with the investigative support unit, for their dedication and determination, and to continue this file to find out everyone that was responsible for the murder of Hardeep Nijjar. Anyone that had contact with these individuals during the time of the offense, which would be in June 2023 in the Surrey area, if you have any interaction with them or you observed them, we're asking that you call the IHIT tip line and relate that information to us in the hopes of building a timeline. Unfortunately, those are different investigations that we are not currently a part of. However, we are coordinating with all agencies throughout Canada on a whole different investigations right now, but I can't speak to their investigation, unfortunately. So we are investigating if there are any ties to the government of India. However, as I said, it's an ongoing investigation, and I don't have any information to provide on that matter at this time. Currently, all three individuals are non-permanent residents in Canada. However, I can't speak to their specific immigration status. They provided members and support throughout our investigation, along with intelligence. Currently, we believe that there may be others involved, and therefore there may be potential arrests or charges for others as well. So we have been liaising with international partners, and we have collaborated with them on this investigation. What I would say is there's always the potential on these type of investigations because of how complex it is. That's why these individuals were charged with the conspiracy to commit murder. So there may be others involved. We don't ever want to say that the investigation has stopped. However, we have been partnering with all of our partner agencies to make sure that the community is safe. I think that would be, what we would want to say is throughout the court process, the evidence will show the roles that these individuals played. Then I would suggest that the community would be able to really understand the roles of what these people actually did. So I would let the evidence speak to what their assumptions for these individuals would be once they go through the court process. Partner agencies internally and externally that were involved. INSET was one of them, definitely, but we had a whole collaboration of agencies and units that we worked with. The list would go on and on.
BC ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾਜ਼ ਕੌਂਸਲ ਦੇ ਬੁਲਾਰੇ ਮਨਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸਨ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰਤੀਕਿਰਿਆ ਦਿੱਤੀ।
India's involvement is right there from the Prime Minister's revelations and also through the U.S. indictment. So I think it's a much larger operation on the ground, more than half a dozen people for sure to carry it out. 4 or 5 months we've been hearing that something was potentially coming, and I think we were all kind of waiting, and after 4 or 5 months you start thinking, well, maybe not. And these individuals, it's very brazen to kind of stick around. It also may have to do with the investigation itself, how closely they were being watched, any travel restrictions, their ability to get out of the country. We're not aware of any of those details, but the investigation led to the arrest. So we have to believe that the investigators took full precautions to ensure that these individuals, the case against them was foolproof to a degree before they laid charges. So while in December, when we heard that there was something imminently coming, hopes were high. And I think after a couple of months, there was a bit of dismay. So this day is bringing a bit of that relief as well, that something has happened. I think we can't really comment on just more speculation, but what we do believe is we've got a motive and a policy to eliminate Sikh activists. That was very clear in the U.S. indictment, where they were going after Mr. Pandu in the U.S., Mr. Nijjar here, 3 or 4 others. We have a long list. That's what Nikhil Gupta, the individual that's been arrested in the Czech Republic, is saying. So when we hear things like that, the Indian government, they could send operatives like this here potentially, if that's what's happened. They could source this out to local gangs here. They could source it out to local hitmen. I think it doesn't really matter to us in that sense. What matters is that India has a policy to eliminate Sikh voices, and they will do so whether they do it through sending people from India here under some type of guise, or they'll contract local people here to carry that out. And that's the concerning piece around public safety, is that there are people out here that have duties to warn. There are people out here that are at risk, and they have to kind of wonder as to what will Canada do at a federal level. So arresting the shooters is one thing. Arresting those that sent the shooters or taking action against them is the root of the issue here. And to us, that's India, that's their consulates, that's their high commission, and what's been there. And we know that 40 years of history shows that Indian operatives under the guise of diplomatic cover come through these consulates in positions, and then they are expelled from this country as well. So there's a long history here that actually shows their involvement. The unfortunate thing is that it took the murder and assassination of a Sikh leader on at a place of worship to actually bring that out to this point. We're still kind of considering that. We're leaving it up to Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara and the family to kind of lead on that as to what they would like to see. We don't want to overstep. We want to make sure that they are comfortable with everything that's happening. At this time, there's nothing that's been scheduled. But if it is, there will be kind of a call out to all media if they're interested in attending. I think it's not just me. I think for 40 years, the community's been talking about foreign interference of India. So I was just saying what the community was feeling. Like I'm no one to kind of speak on behalf of the whole community, but in that moment, what we saw and what happened to Hardeep in that parking lot of a place of worship, it was very clear that this was a political assassination. There was no other reason that anybody would want to harm an individual like Hardeep. It was his views for the Sikh community, its sovereignty, for the Khalistan movement, for the political prisoners that are languishing in jail for the last 30 years, the mass atrocities and human rights violations and genocide committed by India against the Sikh people. For us, it was very crystal clear that a guy that's speaking out at such a high level and connecting so many people to this movement over the last 10 years, that India had to go to this desperate step of eliminating him physically. So I think it's a bit of validation and vindication for the whole community in that sense. I haven't spoken to Mr. Pannu, but him being a lawyer, him being a Sikh activist and Sikh leader, I can only imagine that he's seeing some relief in the community with this news. I think him and his life still being in danger. I think he's still got to take precautions and operate the way he does. And I think he would comment himself, I think if anybody would reach out to him, as to what is transpiring here. But I think from a community perspective, while there's a sigh of relief, there's a much bigger interest in holding India accountable at an international level for what they're doing. I just think that the propaganda India used against Hardeep for, you can trace it back 10 years. You can look at the foreign interference kind of inquiry that's happening right now of how India operates. It's been very clear in there in the documents released by federal agencies that India starts these propaganda campaigns. They use them against Sikh activists and other activists. And I think Hardeep was no different. They built his profile up as this boogeyman within India. So when they went to eliminate him, it was actually celebrated. Indian media celebrated his death. Indian public in large numbers celebrated his death because for 10 years plus, this Modi government and this BJP regime has painted Sikh activists as terrorists and as the individuals that the Indian public should hate. And they're doing it for their own kind of vote banks back home that they're seen as strongmen. And you can see that as in the way their defense minister is speaking, the way their foreign affairs minister and minister of external affairs is speaking. When they're blatantly saying, yes, we've killed people, what's the big deal? And responsible ministers of a so-called democratic state saying things like that, it shows how nonchalantly they're taking it, number one, but I think they also feel very brazen in doing so, that nobody's going to do anything. That Canada's not going to do anything, the US isn't going to do anything, the West isn't going to do anything. They feel that the West needs India more than India needs the West.
ਜ਼ਿਕਰਯੋਗ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਹਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਿੱਜਰ ਦਾ ਕਤਲ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ 18 ਜੂਨ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਲਾਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ। ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਸ ਕਤਲ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਏਜੰਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਦੋਸ਼ ਲਗਾਏ ਗਏ ਸਨ। ਇਸ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਸਦਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਿਆਨ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਨਿੱਜਰ ਕਤਲ ਕੇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਏਜੰਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਸਬੂਤ ਮਿਲਣ ਦਾ ਖੁਲਾਸਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ। ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਨਾਗਰਿਕ ਦੀ ਹੱਤਿਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਮੂਲੀਅਤ ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਭੂਸੱਤਾ ਦੀ ਅਸਵੀਕਾਰਯੋਗ ਉਲੰਘਣਾ ਹੈ। ਮੋਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਭਾਰਤ ਅਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੱਤਿਆਵਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਹੱਤਿਆ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਾਜ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਨਕਾਰ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਭਾਰਤੀ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਐਸ ਜੈਸ਼ੰਕਰ ਨੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਇਲਜ਼ਾਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਤੁਕਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਤੇ ਹਿੰਸਕ ਤੱਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਨਾਹ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਦੋਸ਼ ਲਗਾਇਆ ਸੀ। ਅੱਜ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀਆਂ ਇਸ ਜਾਂਚ ਦਾ ਅੰਤ ਨਹੀਂ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਸਿਲਸਿਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਤਫਤੀਸ਼ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਜਾਰੀ ਰੱਖੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਟੀਮ ਨੇ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਜਣਿਆਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਸਾਜ਼ਿਸ਼ ਘੜਨ ਅਤੇ ਹਥਿਆਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਕਰਨ ਸਮੇਤ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਦਰਜਾ ਕਤਲ ਦੇ ਇਲਜ਼ਾਮ ਆਇਦ ਕੀਤੇ ਹਨ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਨਾਲ ਇਨ੍ਹਾਂ 3 ਸ਼ੱਕੀ ਵਿਅਕਤੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੜਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਮਯਾਬੀ ਹਾਸਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ RCMP ਦੇ ਉੱਚ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਬਰਿਆਨ ਐਡਵਰਡ ਨੇ ਕਤਲ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਥਾਨਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਗਈ ਦਲੇਰੀ ਅਤੇ ਹੌਸਲੇ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਅੱਗੇ ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਮਿਲਣ ਦੀ ਆਸ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਬਿਊਰੋ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਸਾਂਝਾ TV।